One thing we should get into is the fact that yes, the family of the victim in the Cifuentes case is all law enforcement, and it sounds like law enforcement's been really coming out to support the prosecutor in withdrawing the resentencing. And you actually pointed out that that security guard that was going to come in and talk about how Cifuentes convinced him that, you know, rehabilitation works, he was actually intimidated out of testifying.
Yeah, so you know, the family has been extremely involved in the process from the beginning. Officer Monego who was killed. He was a Dublin police officer, Dublin City police officer, but he was also an Alameda County Sheriff's deputy. And so the Alameda County Sheriff's deputies have been very, very involved. His wife was a CHP officer for a long time, his widow, and his son is now an Alameda County Sheriff's deputy as well. So there's a lot of law enforcement in his family, and the Alameda County Sheriff's Department as a whole, including Greg Ahern, the sheriff, has been very, very involved in opposing any resentencing. You know, they've come to every parole hearing, everything that they could to speak out against Miguel being released. And there have been many, many Alameda County Sheriff's deputies who've shown up to every important court hearing, at least, in full uniform. There were about, I think, a dozen or so, which was less than I expected, to be honest, but there were about a dozen uniformed Alameda County Sheriff's deputies at our hearing. They did not sit down.
That's ridiculous. That's pure intimidation.
Yep.
Exactly. And they did not sit down in the seats in the courtroom. They stood in full regalia in the back of the courtroom. And it was a show of force. I mean, it absolutely was. And it was a correctional officer from San Quentin, Officer Lopez, who came to speak. And I do not know exactly what was said, but he knew some of the officers that were in the courtroom, and they talked to him and they said, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't speak on his behalf. And he was terrified. I mean, I don't know exactly what he was terrified of, but I can attest that he was terrified. And, you know, he had taken a day off work. We had spoken many, many times. He had written a speech, you know, and he truly believed in Miguel's rehabilitation and that Miguel should be released, you know, and from personal interactions with Miguel over years, participating in the California Model Luncheon and process with him. And he truly believed in Miguel's rehabilitation. And he was there. He took the day off work. He was there. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I cannot do this. And he left because of what was said to him. And he ended up, he sent me the speech. So I could read his words, but he was too intimidated to stay in the courtroom and read them himself.
Wow. I mean, so now that begs the question. I mean, it really does beg the question, because all of these things happened, right? You could actually say, we're not doing that anymore. Like, there was a time that we did that, but we're not doing that anymore, right? Like, you could actually just own that. And politically, it makes more sense to be like, okay, yeah, we used to do that. We're not doing that anymore. And you kind of own that, and then you move on, right? Why do you think that they're so married to these past things, instead of just saying this thing happened not in our watch, not in our time, not in our administrations? Why do you think they're choosing to say, no, this is a continuation? We want to continue this. What do you think is motivating that? To me, like, you know, this kind of like, you know, harmful behavior to yourself, it feels like you're self-inflicting, to me anyway. Why do you think they want to do that?
Are you talking about the district attorney's office? Or
I'm talking about the district attorneys and the sheriffs.
And
like everybody who was saying, like, okay, well, these sentencings that happened in 2013, 2015, 2018, it's 2025. Let's move on, which I would think would be the more, like, you know, pragmatic thing to do. Why are they so married? Like, just let go. Just say, okay, yeah, that happened. Not in our watch, not in our administration, not under me. These things didn't happen. So why do you think they're so married to They're past mistakes.
Yeah,
Why
they're just sadistic.
So, I mean, I do think that there's, a very different perspective on the world, right? I mean, these people are coming from a very us versus them perspective a lot of the time. And there are law-abiding citizens and there are dangerous criminals, and their job is to protect the people from the criminals who, the reality is, a lot of the time, both law enforcement and district attorney's offices and individuals are not seeing the defendants as human beings. So I think on a very deep fundamental level, I think that is what we see, and that's what we've gone back to absolutely with Jones Dixon. I think that they are concerned about their own wrongdoing coming out. It's where are they tied to these actions? What friends of theirs are tied to these actions? And what could be revealed? I mean, I'm from the East Bay. I'm born in Oakland, raised in Berkeley my entire life. I am not naive. I've been a defense attorney for 15 years. I know what happens. I know about corruption. The last couple years, I've had this job where I've been doing all resentencing and post-conviction. So mostly for people who have been convicted 20, 30 years ago, and I'm reviewing old cases. I'm truly shocked at what has happened in Alameda County over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years with the convictions. I mean, it is really, truly shocking. The number of innocent people, the number of people who have been framed, the number of people who have been subjected to illegal, unconstitutional sentences for a variety of reasons, and the way that OPD and the Alameda County Sheriffs, the Alameda County District Attorneys have worked together to put people away who are innocent or who should not be put away for a variety of reasons. So the corruption is real, it is deep, and it is profound in Alameda County. And I personally, even as a lifelong resident of the East Bay, I did not fully understand how bad it is.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you tell the story about the case that you're working on that now Congressman Eric Swalwell was involved in?
So this is one of my worst wrongful convictions. I'm no longer representing, his name's Dario Cannon. I'm no longer representing him because the exoneration project has taken over his case because he is really, really innocent. They're working along with the Alameda Public Defender's Office. He's just a kid from East Oakland, and there was a shooting, and for whatever reason, his name got connected to it, even though he wasn't there, he wasn't involved. He had absolutely no reason to be involved. And there was one witness who told the police that she had heard that his name. She was brought by the victim's family, said, "Oh, this is who we think, this is who it is. It's Dario. Go to the police and say that you saw and it was Dario." And so she went and said it because she was trying to help the family out, but she hadn't seen. She immediately recanted and said, "I really didn't see if it was Dario. I'm just saying it was Dario because they told me it was." And they arrested her because she wouldn't come to testify at the preliminary hearing. And it was Eric Swalwell, now member of Congress, who was the district attorney for that case. He didn't do the trial. He did the preliminary hearing, and he was involved in her arrest, and she was held in jail for months. They would not release her. The morning at trial, she testified it wasn't Dario, she didn't see, and they would not let her out. They had a hearing at lunch. They would not let her out. And she says the district attorney told her, "Just tell the truth and you can go home." And she knew that telling the truth meant pointing the finger at Dario. And so she came back on the stand and said, "Okay, it was Dario." And really, basically, that was almost the only evidence. There was a little bit of other evidence, but it was all very, very weak. It was, there was all kinds of racist, They said that it was a fight over a car stereo because he had been disrespected because, how those people are in Oakland, how much they care about respect, and so there was all of this implicit racial bias language, all of these innuendos and stereotypes about those kind of people in Oakland.
So you're saying is Swalwell actually imprisoned a woman and forced a confession out of her. That's what you're essentially saying. You're saying Swalwell actually took an innocent woman and imprisoned her and tortured her with prison or jail until she gave the information or told the lie.
Until she gave false testimony. Until she
bore false witness. Until she bore false witness. He tortured her in a jail cell.
Yeah, exactly. So we brought a habeas based on, we've actually had two more, there's three witnesses. That's the witness who testified, and then two more eyewitnesses have come forward who's to say, I saw it and it wasn't Dario. So we actually have three statements by three separate people saying that it was not him. And then now they're also bringing a motion under the Racial Justice Act, which is another new California law, to challenge his conviction, not just based on innocence, but also based on the fact that there was so much racism, embedded within the trial.
You just told me why Swalwell was actually a pro-recall person for Price.
Yep.
You just told me.
That's
you just told me.
Yeah.
If it's like
covering his ass.
No, because seriously, dude, did you really do that?
Yeah.
Right. So Pam was going to talk about it. Like DA Price was going to get to that eventually, right? And other things. So yeah, that's insightful as hell.
Yeah.